There are times when optimism doesn't make any sense, when the situation is so dire that the only rational response is pessimism. And it's at those moments that one needs to remember the obligation of optimism, that even if the situation is terrible, you may owe it to others, you may owe it to history, you may even owe it to yourself to be optimistic. In the coming Torah reading, we're told about an incredibly disappointing moment in the lives of Yaakov and Rachel. Yaakov has had, up to this point, a turbulent life. He's had to run away from his brother. He's gone to a father-in-law who has cheated him multiple times. And finally, he has built a family. He has obtained wealth. He's made peace with his brother and with his father-in-law. And he's returning home to his parents. And the same for Rachel. She's been in the shadow of her sister who's had more children. She's struggled with infertility. She's been jealous of what her sister had. And finally, she too is about to have a second child. And they enter the land of Israel. And at that moment, tragedy strikes. Rachel goes into labor, and the labor is difficult, and she dies during childbirth. Now, what's fascinating is the name that Rachel gives this child, and then what happens just afterwards. Rachel, when told during the final moments of her life that she is about to have a son, she says, well, name the boy Ben-Oni, which means the son of my mourning, because this is a time of grief. I'm about to die. Now, Yaakov hears this name, and Yaakov says, let's rename him. We're not going to call him Ben-Oni, which means the son of grief, the son of bereavement. We're going to call him Binyamin. Now, as the Ramban explains, Binyamin means the son of my right hand, meaning the son of might. I'm not going to use this negative name, this name of bereavement. I'm going to use a positive name. Now, this is a moment of the optimism of obligation. Yaakov should embrace the name of Ben-Oni. Yaakov should recognize this is a moment of terrible sadness, but he refuses to do so. And the reason why he refuses to do so is that you cannot start a child's life and tell him that he is a catastrophe. You must begin that child's life with optimism. You need to tell him that you are a son of strength. And so even though Yaakov's heart is absolutely broken, he needs to offer optimism for his son. And that is the optimism of obligation. And the optimism that one has not because you feel it, not because it makes sense, but because you know you need to do this to help someone else out. You need to do this in order to allow us to achieve our destiny. There have been multiple Binyamin moments in the history of the Jewish people where people had every reason to give up, and there was no rational reason for them to be optimistic. But they said, Afal Pikein, even so, I am going to be optimistic. On November 26, 2008, terrorists came into the Chabad in Mumbai and murdered Gavriel and Rivka Holtzberg. Their young son, who was 2 at the time, Moshe Holtzberg, was actually rescued by a nanny. And what was amazing is how his entire family and his entire community embraced little Moshe, that they said, this boy is going to have a positive destiny. Just like Binyamin, even though he has been marred by tragedy, his future is going to be positive and going to be optimistic. And just a year ago, Moshe Holtzberg celebrated his bar mitzvah, and celebrities from around the world came to celebrate with him. There's a powerful video of Moshe Holtzberg going to the Jewish cemetery on Har HaZeitim on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem and visiting his parents' grave before the bar mitzvah. And he goes there and he lights a candle, and as is customary, he brought a bar mitzvah invitation for his parents and he invited them to his bar mitzvah. This was a Binyamin moment. This is what happens when you're optimistic, not because you feel it, but because you know that is your obligation to destiny. And 11 years later, you have a bar mitzvah boy with a bright future because of that optimism.